So very good morning to dear friends from MNREC, and of course now the more regular group of friends who join the practical wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. We are in the 15th session, and as a summary of what we've done before, I thought I'll go back to the original table with which we began. We began with doing a Jnana Yoga. We did 30 shlokas. Then we did Karma Yoga. We did 5 shlokas. Then we kind of digressed a little bit and did Samabuddhi and Buddhi Yoga. Of course, the number of shlokas done there were far greater in number. And now we are reverting back to the original plan, though I have rejigged the plan in terms of having promoted Dhyana Yoga to number 3. And Bhakti Yoga remains at 4 and the others would remain where they are. Dhyana Yoga was originally at number 6. So I thought Dhyana Yoga would be a very useful corollary to our entire discussion on Samabuddhi and Buddhi Yoga, because somewhere we would get a feeling that the Bhagavad Gita gives a lot of concepts but does not tell us how to internalize them or how to implement them. So Dhyana Yoga is indeed a very practical science taught by Krishna, which enables us to learn and embed some of the ideas contained in the shlokas, as well as to be more peaceful and to be more grounded, which enables automatically a greater flow of knowledge and wisdom within us. So that being the preamble for the entire session that we have today, let me move to the 5 shlokas that we will do today. So the 5 shlokas, I'll chant them in sequence now, and then we can look at what they mean. So 5.2126, then 6 points. So drawing from the 5th and the 6th chapters, here we go. Bahya sparsheshva saktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sa brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. That's 5.21. 5.26, kama krodha viyuktanam yatinam yata chetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditat manam. 6.10, yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sitah ekaki yata chittatma nirashira parigraha. 6.17 is yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshthasya karmasu yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. And finally, for the day, though this is not the last of the shlokas that we have in Dhyana Yoga, there are 4 more to come in the next class. Yatha Deepo Nivatasto Nengate Sopama Smrita Yogino Yata Chittasya Yunjato Yogamatmana. So this is going to be the universe of shlokas that we will look into today. And let's begin with the first one of these. A little point before we begin, which is the fact that Dhyana Yoga is also called Atma Samyama Yoga. Atma Samyam, we understand self-control. And therefore, the 2 titles are given by different commentators. And they are related because Dhyana Yoga should yield. So one is a activity name, and the other is an outcome name. So Dhyana Yoga is an activity name, and Atma Samyama Yoga is an outcome name. So with that having been said, let's go to the first of the shlokas that we have chanted. So let me... Bahya sparsheshva saktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sa brahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. The Anvaya is Bahya sparsheshu asaktatma atmani yat sukham vindati sa brahma yoga yuktatma akshayam sukham ashnute. So there are 2 parts to the shloka, and let's look at the first part. Bahya sparsheshu. Bahya we understand is outside. Sparsha we understand is touch. So Bahya sparsheshu is with respect to the touch of something outside. So obviously that would mean the objects of the senses, which is sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, of course. Asakta Atma. Asakta means to have no attachment. Atma in this case is the soul or the individual, and Atmani in the self. Yat Sukham Vindati. So there is a certain amount of happiness. So the first part of the sentence indicates Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma Atmani Yat Sukham Vindati. So if you are reducing the intensity of the contact with the external world and you are unattached to it, then there is a certain amount of happiness that you get. Atmani Yat Sukham Vindati. Then next is Saha Brahma Yoga Yuktatma Akshayam Sukham Ashnuti, which means that Saha, that is the same person who is performing the act of the Bahya Sparsheshu, that person will further find that he's a Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. You know, his mind has got united, or his self has got united with Brahman. Brahman is a term that we have used quite often to indicate the supreme energy which is there behind the universe. And when he does that, then he has something similar to the first sentence, Akshayam Sukham Ashnute. So in the first sentence, we have Yat Sukham Vindati. So he finds a certain happiness. And here the same Sukham is Akshayam, which is imperishable, Ashnute. So Vindati and Ashnute more or less indicate a kind of outcome. And therefore, there is a certain input that happens and there's a certain output. And there are two categories of input and similar output. So we can understand this a little more by looking at what I call the yantra of this particular shloka. So we understand yantra to mean tool. And this is the yantra that I have created. It's a diagrammatic representation, but I'm calling yantra because it, like any other tool, explains and clarifies the meaning, and we'll come back to the English. So the causative factors that we find are Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma. So with respect to the interaction with outer things, if you have no attachment, then what is the end result? Yat Sukham Vindati. So you as an individual who is meditating will find Sukham. The second causative factor is Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. So one whose self is yukta or is united with Brahma or the universal energy, that person will also find Akshayam Sukham, that is imperishable happiness, Ashnute. Ashnute, Vindati are verbs which describe the outcome, and Sukham is the actual state of the outcome, and the causative factors are basically Bahya Sparsheshu Asaktatma and Brahma Yoga Yuktatma. Coming back to the Artha, we will now look at the translation, which is from Aurobindo, who says, when the soul is no longer attached to the touches of outward things, then one finds the happiness that exists in the self. Such a one enjoys an imperishable happiness because of his self is in yoga, yukta, by yoga with the Brahman. So the yantra will give you a better understanding because simply a set of words in English do not convey the spirit of Sanskrit. However, let us look at the Hindi translation here. बाहरी पदार्थों के स्पर्शों में जिसका अंतःकरण आसक्त नहीं होता, वह मनुष्य आत्मा में जो सुख है उसे प्राप्त करता है. ऐसे मनुष्य का आत्मा योग के द्वारा ब्रह्म के साथ युक्त होता है, अतः वह अविनाशी सुख को अनुभव करता है. So the broad indication is that these are some of the input requirements for meditation, and the end result of meditation would be sukham or happiness. Let's further try to understand this in terms of the tatparya. The tatparya we understand is the deeper meaning. So there is a one-line tatparya which is from a particular commentator who has simply picked up the shortest possible expansion or explanation of the shloka. So this is from Uddhava Gita. Uddhava Gita is the conversation between Uddhava, who was one of the disciples and close friends of Krishna, and it is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So here When one's mind is thus absorbed, one sees me alone in oneself and sees oneself united to me, the self above, like light united to light. So this refers more or less to the Brahma Yoga Yuktatma phrase that we have. But further, let us understand this through the Tatparya from Parthasarathi. So he says that this verse explains the way to attain ultimate state of Brahman, the supreme bliss of the self. The human mind becomes easily attached to the world. Consequently, it suffers agitations and sorrows thereof. Instead, when you turn your mind towards the self within, you become peaceful, you gain relative happiness. Continue your introvertedness until your mind completely merges with the self. You then attain eternal peace and happiness. So, the whole concept of Dhyana Yoga, at least from the shlokas that have been chosen, we begin with a opening shloka, which is an overarching shloka. So it tells you some of the requirements and some of the outcomes that are to be had when you are meditating on a regular basis. So that's the opening shloka that we have. Now let's look at a further shloka, which is 5.26, which further indicates the conditions of meditation. And therefore we have Kama Krodha Viyuktanam Yatinam Yata Chetasam Abhito Brahma Nirvanam Vartate Vyutatmanam. So Kama we understand, Krodha we understand. So Kama Krodha Vyuktanam, I'm reading the Anvaya here. Kama Krodha Vyuktanam Yata Chetasam Vidita Atmanam Yatinam Abhita Brahma Nirvanam Vartate. So there is a sentence, let us deconstruct the sentence. So Yukti is to join, Viyukta is to disjoin or to break. So Kama Krodha Vyuktanam, when you have broken your engagement or broken your attachment or broken your propensity to Kama and Krodha, which is what is the meaning of Kama Krodha Vyuktanam, Yata Chetasam. So yata, the word yata means to control. So chetana in this case is your buddhi and your manas. So when you have got a degree of control over your chetana, okay, again, a term that is being used, broadly speaking. So yata chetasam. So there are two conditions. You are free from desire and anger. You've also gained a degree of control over your mind and your manas. Vidita Atmana, okay. You also have Vidita. So Vidita comes from the word Veda or with, to know. So Vidita Atmanam, you also understand or you have knowledge of the Atma. Okay, you have knowledge of the hierarchy of Atma, Buddhir, Manas, Indriya and Sharira. Once you have a knowledge of this and you kind of understand this by internalizing it, so that's the third condition. Then what do you find? Yatina, you've also practiced a lot of self-control, yatinam. So this is again separately indicated from yata chetasam. So there you control the mind. Yatinam means, again, it's a further phrase indicating the importance of self-control. Then what would you find? You would find Brahma Nirvanam, Abhita, all over. So all over would mean at all points in time, at all times of the day, at all times of the night, in all circumstances. That is what Abhida would mean. Brahma Nirvanam Vartate. You would find that you are existing in that kind of happiness, which was indicated in the previous shloka in terms of the outcome of the meditation. So we'll again jump to the yantra, which is the diagrammatic representation, before we come back to the blue-colored translation. So the yantra simply says that there are four, input conditions. Kama Krodha Vyuktana, which means that you are delivered from Kama and Krodha. Yata Chetasam, that is you have gained mastery, self-mastery. Vidita Atmanam, you have knowledge of the Atma or yourself. Yatinam, and you constantly practice self-mastery. Then you will reach a state of Brahma Nirvanam, which would be there at all points in time. Abhitaha Vartate. You will find that your happiness, your joy, your Sukham Akshaya. So you see, we have used the term here, Akshaya Sukham. So Akshaya Sukham can also be looked at as Abhitah, all around, all over. So there is a connection between these two in that sense, because they are essentially Krishna's way of describing the state through multiple examples. So coming back to the blue colored translation that we have in English, ye yatis, those who practice self-mastery by yoga and austerity, who are delivered from desire and wrath, which is kama, krodha, vyukta nam, have gained self-mastery, which is yati nam. For them, nirvana in the Brahman exists all about them, encompasses them. They are already alive, they already live in it because they have knowledge of the self. So it's put in that fashion here. Let's look at the Hindi meaning to see whether it makes more sense. जो काम और क्रोध से मुक्त हो गए हैं, जिन्होंने अपने चित्त को संयत किया है, आत्म प्रभुत्व प्राप्त किया है, ऐसे आत्मज्ञानी यतियों के सब और ब्रह्म में निर्वाण रहता है. ब्रह्म में निर्वाण रहता है means that they are essentially guided by the intelligent principle, by the supreme energy which is there within you, and therefore it is a state from which they don't decline. There is no erosion of the state once you reach that state. So again, this is the yantra. Let's look at the meaning that we can possibly gain from the one-line Tatparya. So Thomas Kempis was a very famous Christian mystic, and he wrote a book called The Imitation of Christ. The Imitation of Christ is such a fantastic book that if you simply change the word Christ in the book to Krishna, it would be as though Krishna is speaking. So it is a very, very universal mystical book of Christianity, which incidentally is normally not read by Christians. That's the funny part. And the interesting part about this particular book is that this was taken by Swami Vivekananda when he went to the US in 1893. He had two books with him. One is the Bhagavad Gita, and the other one was The Imitation of Christ by Thomas A. Kempis. So what does Thomas A. Kempis have to say about this? Not this shloka as such, but which relates to what the shloka is indicating to us. So he says, observe the simple counsel of perfection. Forsake all and you shall find all. Renounce desire and you will find peace. Give this due thought, and when you put it into practice, you shall understand all things. So it's a very, very deep meaning that has been conveyed by Thomas Kempis. And the extended Tatparya is, that is to say, this is from Aurobindo, that is to say, to have knowledge and possession of the self is to exist in nirvana. This is clearly a large extension of the word nirvana. Freedom from all the stain of passion, which is kama, krodha, vyuktanam, the self-mastery of an equal mind, so samabuddhi and the yatinam, those two are coming together, on which that freedom is founded, equality of all beings, sarva bhuteshu, and beneficial love for all, the final destruction of the doubt and obscurity of the ignorance which keep us divided from all unifying divine knowledge of the one self within us, and in all are evidently the conditions of nirvana, which are laid down in this verse in the Gita, and go to constitute it and are its ultimate spiritual substance. So what the commentary of Aurobindo says is that this particular shloka is the spiritual substance of the Gita. So we are constantly told to have self-control. We are constantly told to have knowledge about the self. We are constantly told to do abhyasa, so practice self-mastery at all points in time. So yatinam and yata chetasam more or less reflect the same concepts. Then, we have Brahma Nirvanam at all points in time, because Krishna also says, Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvatram chamai pashyati. Jo mujhe har jagah dekhta hai, main bhi unko har jagah milta hu. Something like that. So that's the concept here that we are told by Aurobindo to be the key spiritual substance of the Gita. So we've done two shlokas now. Now let's look at the third one, which is 6.10. So what does this shloka indicate to us? Yogi yunjit satatam atmanam rahasi stitah ekaki yata chittatma nirashira parigraha. So Actually, when you go to the 6th chapter, now this is the first shloka of the 6th chapter. If you recall, we had chosen 5. So 6.1, 6.17, 6.19. In fact, the entire 6th chapter is full of Dhyana Yoga. Of course, to do the entire 6th chapter would have been obviously more time consuming. So I picked out some key shlokas from the 6th chapter. So 6.10, let's look at what, and 5 points. So the 5th chapter shlokas, 5.21 and 5.26 that we did, are a kind of introduction, a kind of handshake with the 6th chapter. And the 6th chapter conveys a little more about the concept of Dhyana Yoga, which we will now try to examine in terms of some of the conditions. So let's look at 6.10. So what is the shloka? I read this out. So let me read the Anvaya. Yata chitta atma nirashir aparigraha yogi ekaki rahasi stitah satatam atmanam yunjita. So this is a little more direct in terms of the instructions it gives for meditation. So it says yata chitta atma, self-control, similar to what we had in 5.26. Nirashi, asha is desire. So nirashi is someone who has vanished desire or whose desires are controlled. Aparigraha is someone who does not want to possess more and more. Yogi is a yogi, one who does meditation. Ekaki is alone. Rahasi means in isolation. Rahasya we understand is secret, but here Rahasi means more in isolation. Sitaha is sitting. Satatam atmanam yunjita, should constantly be meditating on the on the unity that you will get by keeping your mind under check. So again, to understand this, see, I found and discovered that using these yantras makes a lot of sense. So let us try to understand this from the concept of the yantra. So you have a yogi, and there is something that the yogi has to do satatam, continually, so that he is able to practice this. Because when he's a yogi, you have to unite with something. No? So atmanam yunjita. So he's trying to unite with the atma within you. But what are the conditions of that unity? So we have ekaki, rahasi, and sita. So these are the physical conditions. Ekaki is you are alone. So whenever you go to a meditation class, when you come back to practice, you are said, please find a place at home where you can practice alone. Rahasi, you cannot really do it in a group, though you may learn it in a group, yet you are in isolation actually. And stitaha, which means that while people do speak about standing meditation, moving meditation, running meditation, and all that, this kind of meditation is you are seated, on an asana, and you are, in sukhasana or padmasana, depending upon how flexible your feet are. So physical conditions are there in the second column, though I have not made the column. Then the third column represents the conditions of the antakaran. So antakaran is what? Yata chittatma, you are self-controlled. Nirashi, your desire is banned, because when you sit down, then you say, oh, I'm feeling thirsty. Oh, I have something to do. Oh, I have not, written that check. Oh, my class is delayed. Something or the other, those are the kinds of thoughts that keep running into your mind. So you become a nirashi. Aparigraha, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. So you see, nirashi and aparigraha, see, we always desire something to possess something. So nirashi and aparigraha more or less related to each other. So unless we constantly practice the physical aspect and the mental aspect, only then can we actually reach the atmanam yunjita. Satatam is a very, very powerful word. It is also reflected by the use of another word, which is called abhyasa. So whenever we sit down for meditation, we got to ensure that we are ekaki, rahasi, and sitaha. We are yatachittatma, nirashir, and aparigraha, and then we do the meditation for a certain period of time when at least these 6 conditions are being met. Then slowly, day after day, as we do it, we'll find that our atmanam is becoming yunjita. We are kind of getting attached to that peace that comes on account of meditation. So I'll jump back once again and we look at the English translation. The yogin should constantly fix his mind on yoga, remaining in a solitary place, all alone, controlling his thought and mind. So this is Yata Chittatma, free from desire and sense of possession. So that's fair enough. And in Hindi, we have Sharir और मन को संयमित किया हुआ योगी एकांत स्थान पर अकेला रहता हुआ आशा और परिग्रह से मुक्त होकर निरंतर मन को आत्मा में स्थिर करे. Okay, so here we have found that you see these terms get used quite interchangeably. Man, Atma, Buddhi. So we need to have the clarity of the hierarchy and understand that there is a certain flexibility of the use of language. So having understood probably in a better fashion with the help of this yantra, let me go to the commentary on this. So the commentary is, again, so in India, we sometimes think that a lot of the spirituality emerges from here. Yes, it does emerge with clarity from India, but there are no doubt a lot of Western philosophers who unfortunately are not mainstream now, who have understood and have articulated or documented the same thing. So one of them is Marcus Aurelius, and those of you who have seen Gladiators, the movie, would know that he is the father of that very, very crazy king who becomes the Roman emperor, and then all the trouble follows for Brad Pitt in his role as the general. So the point that is being made by Marcus Aurelius, who was a great philosopher as well as being an emperor, is retire into this little territory of your own, and above all, do not distract or stain yourself, but be free. Such a beautiful way to say what has been conveyed in the previous shloka. So, this is something that great men of the world have always done. And it's for us to understand and to pick up the knowledge and go ahead with it. So here we have a little commentary from Radhakrishnan. And of course, he has actually a 5-page commentary on this, but the broad introduction he gives is, here the teacher Krishna develops the technique of mental discipline along the lines of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. Its main purpose is to raise the consciousness from its ordinary waking state to higher levels until it attains union with the Supreme. The human mind is ordinarily turned outwards. Absorption in the material and mechanical side of life leads to disbalanced condition. Yoga attempts to explore the inner world of consciousness and helps to integrate the conscious with the subconscious. This is Radhakrishnan. And of course, that is the reason why we find meditation being spoken about in corporates. You have, mindfulness, and you have Vipassana, and then you have Sahaja Yoga, and then you have Brahma Kumaris, and then you have Sudarshana Kriya of Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, then you have inner engineering by Sadhguru, and you have so many, and you have transcendental meditation by Maharshi Mahesh Yogi and his followers. So all of them are actually deriving their methods from the Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And since the Bhagavad Gita is such a compendium of Indian philosophy and psychology, meditation techniques also find their definite reference in the Gita in the 6th chapter. And this is a very, very clear shloka in the 6th chapter, which opens up to the conditions of meditation, which is to be ekaki, rahasi, and
it's 12 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay. So with that, let me move forward to the next shloka, which is in fact the last shloka that we have, and we have plenty of time for discussion. Now, this is a beautiful shloka. So let me chant it once again. Yatha deepo nivatasto nengate sopama smata yogino yatachittasya yunjato yogamatmana. So yatha nivatasya. Vata is air. Nivata is airless or windless. Yatha nivatasya deepaha. Deepaha is our flame. Na ingate. Na ingate is does not flicker. Atmanam yoga yunjataha. So in the same way, when you have got your peace with the Atma, you have got united with the Atma, in the same way, the Atma will also not flicker. And such a person is called Yata Chittatsya Yoginaha Sa Upama. So this is the kind of alankara, or this is the kind of upama that is given for a yogi who is meditating properly. So again, let me jump to the yantra. So what we are saying, Nivataha, in a windless place, Deepaha is a light, Na Ingate does not flicker. Similarly, Yunjataha, one who practices Yatachittasya Yoginaha, he is also like a flickerless wick. So Yatha and Sa Upamasmata, the in-between, are just connectives to indicate that the darkened two boxes, which is Nivatasya Deepa Naingate, Yunjataha Yatachittasya Yoginaha. So I will now quickly jump to actually, I'll just come to this. So this is the whole concept. Now the concept is like this, that the wind that you find, see, Nivata does not mean that there is no air. It simply means that there is no flowing air. Now, the disturbance in the air is equivalent to the disturbances that we have in the mind. So when the mind is very disturbed, it's like a wind blowing, and therefore your Atma would almost be extinguished. You would not be able to see it. Now, the less and less the wind blows, or less and less there is disturbance in the wind, the more steady the candle is. So in the same way, we need to be actually very, very steady. And the whole purpose of meditation is that I make my mind totally thoughtless, or thoughts are under control. So now let's look at the translation here. Motionless like the light of a lamp in a windless place is the controlled consciousness, free from its restless action, shut in from its outward motion of the yogin who practices union with the self. So this is exactly what we mean by saying mindfulness. When we're saying mindful, what we mean in Buddhist terms is you are fully aware of what the mind is trying to, when the mind is trying to run away, you kind of capture it and make it again focused. So we often think meditation means being totally thoughtless. It is actually bringing us back to thoughtlessness, because the mind is such, it will keep generating thoughts all the time. And therefore, to understand this shloka much better, what I have done today is I have actually brought in two very, very classical commentaries. One is from Shankaracharya and others from Ramanujacharya. So moving on to the commentary of Adi Shankaracharya, and it's so interesting to observe the commentary. So what he has to say is something that, of course, we will understand, because it's not something totally out of the blue. So I will read the Sanskrit part of it, because it's charming to read the Sanskrit. Yatha Deepah Pradipah Nivatastah Nivate Vata Varjite Deshe Sitah Na Ingate Na Chalati Sa Upma Upamiyate Anaya Itipava Yogaggehi Chitta Prachara Darshibhi Smata Chintita Yogino Yata Chittasya Samyatantah Karanasya Yunjato Yogam अनुतिष्ठतः आत्मानः समाधि अनुतिष्ठतः इत्यर्थः एव योगाभ्यास बलादेकाग्र भूतम निवात प्रदीप कल्पम सत्. It's a beautiful thing, of course. It's not that I understand, but then one can make out the correlations to what is being now indicated in the English translation. So as a light in a windless spot does not stir, this is the simile, the object to which the yogin is likened by the knowers of yoga, who are conversant with the movements of the mind. The yogin's mind, the inner sense, is controlled, and he practices yoga, which is concentration. Thus, the mind becomes one-pointed, very much like the light in a windless spot, due to the power of yoga practice. So, Nivata Pradeepa Kalpam Yoga Abhyasa Bala. You can see that very nice phrase. So Yoga Abhyas ka bal, that is the most important thing that we need to understand from this commentary. And let me turn to the commentary of Ramanujacharya. I'll not read the Sanskrit part of it, but let us see how he puts a slightly greater level of understanding. As a lamp does not flicker in a windless place, does not move, but remains steady with its illumination, thus is the simile used to illustrate the nature of the self of the yogin. So the flame is the nature of the self who has subdued his mind, who has got rid of other kinds of mental activity and was practicing yoga concerning the self. The meaning is that the self remains with its steadily illuminating knowledge. So the flame light is compared to the knowledge of the Atma, the knowledge of the Atma gives, because all other activities of the mind have ceased. Just as a lamp kept in a windless place has an unflickering flame. So I think very deep words, because this tells us exactly what we need to do during meditation. All the agitation of the mind should be brought to a halt, and then we truly can feel, the peace that the Atma and the knowledge that the Atma gives, because the knowledge of the Atma is like the light of the flicker of the flame, and it does not get reduced by the movement of the mind, which is like the wind. So indeed, a very, very powerful explanation that I believe we have. So with this, we've completed the 5 shlokas that were planned for today. And I think, we have a very interesting opportunity to have a discussion around this. So let me seek the questions first from Vishwarup today.
Yeah, actually, Raj, it was a very nice presentation. Now, what I wanted, last part, actually, I have some doubts. Actually, you said the when you talked of the flame, the knowledge of Atma, which you are equating with the flame, it does not get seized. That last part I was not very clear, actually.
Yeah, so broadly we can say that if your mind is constantly, moving about here and there, the flame will not be able to throw light properly. And therefore,
Okay.
you will not be able to experience the knowledge of the Atma in a way that it can guide you. See, for something to guide you, you need some steady source of illumination. So the more agitated your mind is, the less likely that the Atma will give you any guidance. Because as you know, tamas hota hai na bhai. It is the exact opposite of tamas. Jyoti hai, antar jyoti hai, and tamas hai. So when your mind is full of agitation, it is like covering the flame of the Atma. Therefore, we must meditate every day, because without meditating every day, we will not be able to give the Jyoti a little more strength, a little more sort of involvement in what we do.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does it make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So Sunil Rastogi has asked a beautiful question. Who made these yantras? Sir, yours truly, because I was trying to explain to all my batches. And then, I discovered that Sanskrit is a very logical language. I mean, I discovered, not that it was not known to us. And therefore, when you package the concepts the way I've done, meaning becomes very easy. In fact, what happens is, my other batches, now there is no doubt about the meaning of the shloka. So we can go to a discussion about the application of the shloka far quicker, because previously I found that the meaning of the shloka itself was in a certain amount of confusion because of, however much you try to explain in words, words fail you. But when you try to put, so I called it yantra actually. Initially, I was calling it diagrammatic representation. Then मैंने कहा let us use one Indian topic, यंत्र तो है ही है.
फिर ऐसा है तो ऐसा एक इंजीनियरिंग वाला ग्रंथ जो है आप पूरी गीता पर बनाओ. एक ग्रंथ बनाना पड़ेगा. एंड somehow ये diagrammatic वर्क में मेरा भी कुछ दखल है. If you want my help, I would like to contribute there.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was thinking of flow charting, but I found that I could not use all the symbols of flow charting here. I'll tell you. So, in fact, let me just add to what you're saying here. When I consulted a few books, they said that there are 3 kinds of language in the Gita. Okay. Ek to darshan bhasha. Darshan bhasha means it is the language of darshanas, logic, analogy, simile, straightforward, where a diagram like this would work. Then the second kind of language is Guhya Bhasha, which means esoteric meaning. जो word का meaning है उसका ordinary meaning नहीं होता, उसके पीछे वाला meaning होता है. Okay. And third kind of meaning is called Samadhi Bhasha. जब Krishna, what happened?
It's working.
हाँ, yeah, it's working. तो जब कृष्ण जो है, when he is in that very elevated mode, he says no, यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत. So that is called samadhi bhasha, because वो एकदम अपने mood में आके, it is like he's on a high. So that is the third kind of language. So the challenge of making the yantra is to know what language you're making the yantra for, because it is possible for the logical language. It is not possible for the high point. But yes, all collaboration here is very welcome, because I think I hit upon something which no commentator has thought about. This is something I'm very, very clear. Because no commentator has thought about putting it in a diagrammatic fashion, which helps explain the whole shlokas. And this comes because I was attending some Sanskrit class, and Sanskrit mein he was talking about the logic of the Sanskrit language. Then suddenly, a moment of inspiration hota hai, हमारा भी समाधि हो गया उसमें. हमने कहा चलो ये करते हैं. Yeah, but I think so as I understand from you, it is definitely helpful in understanding, right?
Definitely. It is a much more adding value.
और अगर कोई इंजीनियर ऐसा कर रहा है तो डेफिनेटली वो अपनी विद्या का यूज कर रहा है. So
this is a new way which we found really helpful in understanding the meaning.
Yeah, because it helps you.
इसी वजह से कई बार जो है ना हम लोगों को वेस्टर्न रेफरेंसेस लेने पड़ते हैं, बिकॉज वो लोग ये सब काफी करते हैं. इनफैक्ट मॉडर्न मैनेजमेंट बुक्स में डायग्राम्स बहुत बनने लगे हैं.
करेक्ट.
और आपने देखा होगा कंसल्टिंग फर्म्स बहुत सारे डायग्राम्स बनाती हैं.
बिल्कुल.
तो
so
ये
I think this is something
जो है हमें स्क्रिप्चर्स में अगर हम ऐड कर सकें तो बहुत बड़ी बात है.
No, we should, because that's the way in which it will appeal to be more educated. We have to understand the logic better. Definitely.
Actually, visualization will help in visualization of the realities.
Correct.
Which we generally do not do. Actually, this is a new subject for us,
और
where we are trying to enrich ourselves with the knowledge or with the things we do not know. So visualization will be better that way. True.
राज में आपसे बोला था ना कि यूथ को कैसे कनेक्ट किया जाए. So this is one tool. This is one tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, because so now I have made this standard across all my groups, that first we have chanting, vak. Okay, I mean here I'm not doing chanting, but I do chanting first. Then we have artha. Then we have yantra. Then we have tatparya. And then we have discussion. विवाद.
Very good.
ये जो अर्थ लेते हैं आप हिंदी में और अंग्रेजी इंग्लिश में, where are you picking up? That is a common source, or you're picking up from different sources?
नहीं, एक common source है जो कि औरोबिंदो का जो, I mean I will send the link with you. तो वहाँ पे है, because you see, I mean, but जो हमारा तात्पर्य है ना, तात्पर्य I pick up from different commentaries.
Yeah.
So artha I pick up from one, because उसका font size ठीक है, उसको cut paste करने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, because वो सब फलाना डमकाना भी होता है उसमें. कहीं पे if you paste from there, if you increase the font, it will become small. I don't know, something happens.
Yes.
So उल्टा होते रहता है. So I have picked up, because एक तो गीता सुपर साइट है, एक औरोबिंदो का साइट है, ऐसे 2-3 साइट्स हैं जहाँ ये सब मसाला है. So I have, over the past 6 to 8 months, I have come to know all these sites, from where for my standard stuff it is easy. See, standard stuff should not take too much time to put into the PowerPoint, correct? So that I can spend more time in putting the tatparya, which is the non-standard stuff, because I pick up the best commentary or the whatever it is, jo bhi hai.
Yes.
And now I have also discovered this yantra business. So I just started for fun. Then in my other class, there was a chartered accountant. उसने कहा, सर हमने chartered accounting में flow charting पढ़ा है, मैं आपको help करूँगी. उससे तो then she was not able to understand, because you got to understand the shloka also very well to the extent, and then you have to look at the flow charting. So now I really look at collaboration, to help make better flow charts from all this, and it will be useful. So I mean that's so much on the
हिंदी में अर्थ यूज करते हैं, हिंदी में जो अर्थ यूज करते हैं कई बार जो है या इंग्लिश में वो कंफ्यूजिंग होते हैं, बट व्हेन यू ऐड विद द यंत्रा दोनों को मिला के देखते हैं, then it becomes very clear.
Correct. So
हाँ.
my realization was only this, that
Correct.
no one commentary helps us understand completely. So you have to have multiple angles to understanding it. तो अक्सर हम लोग क्या करते हैं, when we pick up on our own, हम एक ही बुक लेते हैं, अरे यार गीता का एक बुक ले लिया. So I found that that is limiting, because you know it is impossible for everybody to explain every shloka to your satisfaction, because हमारी भी तो एक बुद्धि है जो समझने की कोशिश कर रही है. Therefore, when you have multiple angles, somehow it becomes a little more clearer. The only question is that you should have patience enough to look at 4 or 5 different things and not get confused in the 4 or 5 that you consult. So that calls for a few years of doing this. Yes.
एक और चीज I would like to add. So far my understanding was Gita is talking about the ध्यान योगा, नहीं, not ध्यान योगा, ज्ञान योगा, bhakti yoga and karma yoga. But they are also talking about ध्यान योगा. The ध्यान yoga is also one of the way to reach to meet the Brahman.
Yes, absolutely. देखो कृष्णा क्या करते हैं, he has got multiple yoga, he's got multiple, जो आपका जो Swiss knife है ना, ट्रक ट्रक ट्रक, he's got some 10 different things in the Swiss knife. So depending on the chapter, he will pull out that particular instrument and say, this is the best. Okay, so you will get confused which is the best, but the thing is that there are many other commentators, more modern ones, because the older commentators like Shankaracharya, Ramanacharya, they take a stand, you know, Jnana Yoga ही supreme है, Bhakti Yoga ही supreme है, ऐसा. लेकिन जो modern commentators हैं, some of them, not all of them, ISKCON तो definitely not. ISKCON तो कहते हैं भक्ति योगा और कुछ नहीं है, कृष्णा के सिवाय और कुछ नहीं है. But more
that
modern,
is the easiest way. That is the easiest
absolutely,
way.
absolutely. उसमें दिमाग लगाने की जरूरत नहीं है, गीता पढ़ने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. In the sense that you simply chant Hare Rama mantra every day, 16 बारी पढ़ो आप, 5 साल में आपका, in fact that is a typical experience, you know, every day for 5 years you chant 16 rounds, आपके मुंह में ऐसा चमक आएगा, ऐसी लीला आएगी, that is very very clear कि आपका जो है ब्रह्म के साथ यूनिटी हो गया है. But the point is that that's the easiest way, but the modern commentators say integrated, you know, तो शुरू में कर्म योगा करना है, उसके बाद जो है ध्यान योगा करना है, फिर जो है भक्ति योगा आएगा. So it's a blend, it's a cycle. तो एक आदमी में जैसे इंट्रोवर्जन रहता है, एक्सट्रोवर्जन रहता है, you know, कोई भी टोटली इंट्रोवर्टेड नहीं होता, कोई भी टोटली एक्सट्रोवर्टेड नहीं होता. You know, we are a blend of multiple characters and psychometric properties.
But in a hierarchy, the Jnana Yoga should be on the top. It should start from the Jnana Yoga.
वो तो ठीक है भाई, that is my bias, that is our bias, because we are all engineers, correct? But depending upon who you are, for example, you take Paramahamsa Yogananda में Raja Yoga, Dhyana Yoga is at the top, correct? तो so I will tell you, जैसे मैंने पिछली बारी भी कहा था, गीता दर्पण जो है, it's a book by स्वामी रामसुख दास. तो उन्होंने बताया है कि श्री कृष्ण जी के सिखाने की शैली क्या है. तो क्या करते हैं, he will take one yoga, explain fully about it, उसको ऊंचाई तक लेके जाएंगे, फिर उसको एंड करने के पहले he will tie it with another yoga. आपको ज्ञान योग करना है तो आपको भक्ति भी चाहिए. Then Bhakti Yoga, he will take it to the full. Then he will tie it up with Dhyana Yoga. तो ऐसा interlink किया गया है in the Bhagavad Gita that you can take any one yoga and start from there and you get interlinked to other yoga. So it is like a multiple node. जहाँ जो आपको जो है सुगम लगता है वहां से आप स्टार्ट करो. भाई आपको ज्ञान योगा अच्छा लगा, स्टार्ट करो. भक्ति योगा अच्छा, वहां से स्टार्ट करो. तो ultimately these are all interlinked and you cannot really progress in one without doing something of the other. Yeah, personally I feel Jnana Yoga is on top. I personally feel that. But my learning from the Gita is that it is all, it is like multipolar, multi-dynamic, multi जितना लगाना है वो सब लगा लो. I don't know the modern phrases in engineering. Engineering तो भूल ही गए अभी. तो ऐसा है.
जिसको जहां से एक्सपोजर मिल जाए, जिसको जहां से नॉलेज मिल जाए, वो शुरू कर दे वहां से. इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी कि आपको पहले ज्ञान लो उसके बाद शुरू करो. आप
No,
अगर
no, not
ध्यान
at
में होता ध्यान से करो, भक्ति से होता भक्ति से करो।
correct, correct. So this
एक
whole
और चीज
fight,
है मेरे दिमाग, एक और दिमाग
हाँ,
में आता है, ये
हाँ,
जितने भी ये आप बता रहे थे अभी ये कि महेश योगी ट्रांसेंडेंटल मेडिटेशन और राज योगा ब्रह्म कुमारी या ईशा क्रिया सुदर्शन क्रिया, ये सब जो है इज आल्सो दे आर नॉट सिमिलर. I don't know whether nomenclature is different only or it is a method is also different. I have not exposed to all those.
yeah. See, methods are also slightly different, but the funda is the same. Funda is आपका मन घूमते
Ultimate
रहता है.
objective is the same. Objective is the same.
Absolutely. See, I mean ये सब जो है branding का मामला है. Right now, Isha branding का मामला है.
So
Because I have done
objective is
Vipassana.
branding.
हाँ?
The ultimate objective is that branding. In
बिल्कुल
all
सर.
these cases,
Branding का
in
मामला
all these cases.
So correct. So yeah, it will differ. 19-20 का फर्क है. Emphasis का फर्क होगा. Sequence में थोड़ा आगे पीछे होगा. लेकिन the purpose is the same. Because with an agitated mind, you cannot find peace. Without having a peaceful mind, you cannot find your Atma. Simple. Right.
नहीं, मैंने हर जगह दरवाजे खटखटाने की कोशिश करी है, मगर अल्टीमेटली मेरे को कहीं भी वो चीज समझ में नहीं आई. I have been to ब्रह्म कुमारी, I have been to transcendental meditation, I have been to सदगुरु क्रिया, और सबके अपना अपना that become like a cult. कि आपको अपना ही तरीका बताएंगे और आपको कहेंगे कि आप यही काम करो बस.
करेक्ट. तो इसीलिए तो भाई मैंने ये सब इन लोगों के पास जाना छोड़ दिया और मैंने कहा ऐसे सुपर बॉस को पकड़ो जो कृष्ण जी हैं, who gives you the overarching. Honestly, I also went for transcendental meditation. Then everybody will give you only part knowledge, and say next knowledge is next level, next knowledge is next level. Correct. So nobody will.
In fact, in all of them, I found Sadhguru is a little better.
Correct. He's rational. He's not irrational.
But मैं एक बात बताऊं, मैंने उनके कम से कम सैकड़ों वीडियोस देखे हैं सदगुरु के. फाइनली सदगुरु हर बात को गोल गोल घुमा देते हैं.
करेक्ट.
वो किसी बात का परफेक्ट आंसर नहीं देते हैं. उससे बेटर आंसर आपको ऑलरेडी गीता में मिल जाता है.
बिल्कुल. सो मैं कह रहा हूँ ना,
वो तो इतना अच्छा घुमाते हैं हर बात को. एक्चुअली ही इज ए ग्रेट कम्युनिकेटर.
करेक्ट.
जैसे मोदी जी है ना हमारे, तो उनसे आप हर बात का जवाब ले सकते हो. तो ही इज लाइक दैट.
करेक्ट.
अच्छा सुनील जी, मुझे भी एक चीज बोलना है. आप जो बोल रहे थे ना सदगुरु के बारे में, मैं जो सुना हूँ, ही सेज मैं उतना पढ़ाई वढ़ाई नहीं किया हूँ, मैं ज्ञान में उतना, मैं ध्यान से सब कुछ अर्जन किया हूँ. तो उसका आंसरिंग विल नॉट बी ज्ञान ओरिएंटेड, इट विल बी मोर ऑफ लॉजिकल ओरिएंटेड, बिकॉज वो स्पिरिचुअली अपने आप को अपलिफ्ट किया है. दैट्स व्हाट आई अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम हिम.
Yeah, absolutely. So you keep saying I am not.
थोड़ी देर बाद लगेगा आपको कुछ समझ में नहीं आया. आप बहुत कुछ सुन लोगे उनका, उसके बाद लगेगा बहुत लॉजिकल बात कर रहे हैं, बट अगर आपको सेम चीज कहीं पर एप्लीकेशन की बात आएगी तो कहीं एप्लीकेशन नहीं मिलेगा.
नहीं, ही स्पिरिचुअली एक्चुअली वो बहुत ज्यादा स्पिरिचुअली अलाइंड है. ही थिंक्स एवरीथिंग स्पिरिचुअली. वो अनुभव करने की कोशिश करता है.
आज की डेट में तो वो पॉलिटिकली अलाइंड भी है बहुत ज्यादा.
करेक्ट.
टुडे ही इज वेरी मच पॉलिटिकली अलाइंड. अब स्पिरिचुअल से दूर हो चुके हैं.
Correct. So the
there is a
moment
question by me, Rajshekar, there is a question on chat.
Yeah. So what's your question? Let me just check. Is it happening silence? He can maintain the same even if there is disturbance outside? No. So you have to constantly practice this, because in the 6th chapter there is a very famous objection by Arjuna. When Krishna explains all this, Arjuna says, "Arey sir, kya baat kar rahe ho? माइंड तो ऐसे घूमते रहता है, कैसे माइंड को कंट्रोल करें?" ओके. सो कृष्णा सेज इसके लिए 2 ही तरीके हैं, अभ्यास और वैराग्य. अभ्यास का मतलब यू मस्ट कॉन्स्टेंटली प्रैक्टिस, बिकॉज द टेंडेंसी इज फॉर द इक्विलिब्रियम टू बी डिस्टर्ब्ड एवरी टाइम यू एंटर इनटू द वर्ल्ड. सो यू हैव टू कॉन्स्टेंटली प्रैक्टिस ऑन अ डेली बेसिस सो दैट द पीरियड ऑफ इक्विलिब्रियम even after interacting with the external world is not disturbed too much. So it has to get, so that equilibrium of meditation has to get anchored in you, and that comes from only abhyas. Now vairagya इसलिए बोलते हैं कि भाई आप you can have a lapse, you can make a mistake, so you must not condemn yourself. थोड़ा बहुत अपने mistake से वैराग्य होना चाहिए कि भाई this is the nature of the mind to slip up, And therefore, towards any errors from your side on account of the inequilibrium, you should have vairagya, and you should constantly do abhyasa on a daily basis. So this is, in fact, let me tell you, this is just for your information, chapter 6. It is shloka 33 and 34 are Arjuna's objections, and 35 and 36 are Krishna's answers.
Yeah, I got it. I saw it.
Yeah. So just take a look at that, because
Yeah.
this is the very reason that Arjuna put the question for.
Yeah, actually, my question
I
is a
think-
little different, Raj.
हाँ,
There are many people these days that who say that अभी वहां पर हमने वो हवा नहीं चल रही हो तब जैसे ज्योति जल रही की बात कही ना.
हाँ, करेक्ट.
आज की डेट में काफी लोग ये कंसेप्ट भी देते हैं कि असली मेडिटेशन तो हम लाइफ प्रोसेसेस के दौरान भी कर सकते हैं, which means we can have all that process running while we are doing our daily course. But we need not be in a secluded place. We may be amongst many people, and still we may be meditating inside our mind. So this concept is also coming these days. So
Correct.
what is your thought about this?
See, my thought is that unless you are grounded in a higher energy practice, because being secluded and being isolated will give you that basic momentum. So without that basic momentum to actually, I mean, if you are starting the meditative practice and then you start with, I will meditate when eating, I will meditate when driving, I will meditate, it is less likely to be effective, less likely than when you actually have a momentum. You have done some 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 1 year meditation alone, then automatically your meditation happens when you are driving or when you are running or when you are doing whatever. If you start with meditating while running or doing your daily activities, it may not be that effective. That's my personal experience.
Yes, my point is that only कि start करने के लिए हमें secluded और ऐसी जगह चाहिए, उसके बाद जब हमें practice हो जाए तो हम day to day life में भी meditate कर सकते हैं.
बिल्कुल, because you have created the conditions for meditation in your mind,
Yeah.
which are now agnostic to the conditions outside.
Yes.
So initially you need conducive conditions, which is ekaki hona, sthit hona, rahsi hona, and all that. But once that becomes a kind of mode of behavior of your mind, then you can apply it anywhere.
Actually, Raj, if I may add,
Sure.
Can I say something?
Sure, of course.
If I may add, actually, what Garji was trying to say, मुझे जो लगा, the things are little different. आप जब काम कर रहे हैं, सद्गुण आप में आना चाहिए. आप थोड़ा few seconds extra लेके आप सोच के काम कीजिए. इस और concentration तो आपका work, आप जब activity में नहीं है तभी आप concentrate कर सकते हैं. When you are in activity, you can give little more time than what you generally give to take correct decisions. That is what is implied, I think, by the people who have this sort of thinking. Because you are people who are working, they are always in activities. तो उनको time मिलना मुश्किल है for concentration. Maybe they are able to concentrate only for a few hours or few 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half an hour. काफी है. But when they are in their activities, then how to move towards godliness? तो उसमें आपको सोच के दिमाग ठीक करके थोड़ा बहुत knowledge रख के आपको धीरे-धीरे start करना पड़ेगा.
So you are right. These are compromises made for a modern working lifestyle. But having been through that, I find it is not effective. ठीक है, you'll spend money on doing something, yoga on the chair, yoga while walking, yoga while this and yoga while that. It's okay, it helps. But ultimately, you have to go to an individual practice. These are all incentives while working for you to get started. You will have some benefit, but for better benefits, it is advisable to have an individual isolated practice, because otherwise these very yogic processes, they work for an individual. They don't work, when you are too distracted. So point is that if you are so self-controlled that your mind will never get distracted when you are in a crowd, then you're already a yogi actually. You don't need meditation. You're already a yogi because your mind is concentrated. I mean, by Purva Janma, you may have been a yogi, so your mind is concentrated. So it does not, what's happening outside does not bother you.
नहीं, मैं कर्म के साथ
कर्म
भक्ति
योगी-
में विश्वास करता हूँ कि आप ज्ञान उपयोग करके कर्म के साथ ही भक्ति का प्रयोग करो।
Correct.
भक्ति के लिए अलग से टाइम देने का मतलब यह है कि आप एक्चुअली प्रोबेबली अपनी कुछ ड्यूटीज जरूर मिस कर रहे होगे।
बिल्कुल सर, अभी तो आप गीता की बात कर रहे हैं सभी लोग।
वही तो बात है ना, इसलिए तो मैं समझता हूँ कि गीता भी कर्म के साथ भक्ति की बात करती है, और इसलिए गीता जो है आपको गुण इसीलिए बताती है कि ताकि आप जो कर्म करो वो सही करो, राइटियसनेस की बात करती है।
बिल्कुल, absolutely on the dot.
Actually, this is what I was trying to say. Karma and bhakti एक साथ अगर आप कर्म के साथ कर सकते हैं in an ethical way, that is also yoga. That's what गर्ग साहब जो बोल रहे थे उसका मीनिंग वही निकलता है।
जी आप बिल्कुल सही बात करते हैं कि वो जो कर्म के साथ भक्ति की बात है ना, वो भी एक योगा है।
एग्जैक्टली,
ज्ञान का उपयोग करके।
एग्जैक्टली नहीं, सत्गुण से मतलब आप जब काम करेंगे गर्ग जी, तो आपको बहुत सिचुएशंस आएगा वेयर यू विल हैव टू कॉम्प्रोमाइज, लेकिन आप अगर कॉम्प्रोमाइज नहीं करेंगे, सत राइट डायरेक्शन में जाएंगे, इसमें आपको बाधा बहुत आएगा।
He is showing some diagram. Let us see that.
सर ये देखिए आप, I will send the snapshot to you. आपको दिख रहा है ठीक से?
हाँ दिख रहा है, बस इसका स्नैपशॉट व्हाट्सएप पे भेज जरूर दीजिएगा।
बिल्कुल। तो देखिए, he has put all the yogas together, calling it integral yoga.
ओके, एक और अच्छा ब्रांड बन गया है, इंटीग्रल योगा। One more brand.
So in fact, it's a kind of endless loop. Jnana, nishkama karma, purification of heart, bhakti, dhyana, तो एक endless loop बना दिया उसने. So on that count, let me end this session today. So thank you so much once again.